Sometimes the end of employment can be a little bit ugly for both the employer and the employee. We recently had a client situation where we recommended to include a deed of release in order to finalise matters relating to the employment and to protect the business against future claims. So today we wanted to share this situation with you, as well as unpacking what a deed of release does and when they might be a useful tool for you to use in your HR and workplace relations affairs. Typically, employee termination entitlements are covered by the Fair Work Act, the National Employment Standards, Modern Awards, and employment contracts, with the exception, of course, being long service leave that's covered by state-based legislation. Now, these instruments are typically sufficient enough to support a fair and equitable conclusion of employment for both the employer and the employee. However, what happens when there's a dispute and one or both parties feel aggrieved? We recently had a situation such as this with a client where the employee was fairly terminated. However, they felt that they were entitled to an additional week's severance pay than they were entitled under the relevant legislation. The relationship between the employer and the former employee soured as a result of this difference of views, and the employee was threatening to make a claim against the employer to recover the 1 week's pay that they incorrectly believed that they were entitled. Our client ultimately made a commercial decision to pay the employee the extra week's pay, as they did not want to have to defend the impending claim, even after we reassured them that they would be successful if they chose to defend the claim. Ultimately, in their view, it was simply cheaper for them to pay the 1 week's salary rather than spending their time plus the cost of further advice in defending the claim. But once they paid the additional week's wage, how could they ensure that the former employee would not go and lodge the claim anyway? This is where a deed of release comes in, which is in effect an enduring contract between the employee and their former employer for full and final settlements of all matters relating to their employment and including the associated terms. In our scenario, the simplified way of looking at this is that it's a document that says we, the employer, will pay you, the employee, 1 week's wage, and you, the employee, cannot lodge any future claims against us. It's important to note that deeds of release can be found invalid if they're less than the entitlements afforded to the employee under the different pieces of legislation that we outlined earlier. For an example, if the employee is owed 4 weeks' notice, a valid deed of release cannot seek agreement to only pay 2 weeks of notice. Additionally, deeds of release, regardless of the included terms, cannot release the employer from future claims relating to workers' compensation and superannuation. So when should you consider using a deed of release? Well, in our view, any situation where you've agreed to pay an employee on termination an amount that's more than their legislative entitlements, you should be considering making that offer subject to a deed of release. We think about it this way. You, the employer, are giving something extra to the employee and therefore should be asking for something in return. And in this case, a release from future claims such as unfair dismissal and adverse action.
Does your business currently have a HR or workplace relations issue? Are you unsure how to work through compliance issues but still achieve a good business outcome? Why not take advantage of On-Demand HR's free 30-minute online consultation with an experienced HR consultant? At the end of the consultation, we will also provide you with a strategic action plan to resolve your current issues. To see the types of matters we can help you with and to schedule your consultation, please visit ondemandhr.com.au/advice. We look forward to delivering certainty, confidence, and clarity for your business in your HR and workplace relations affairs.